you all, I'm BlaqueWitchYaya. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. You guys will not be able to see my face in this video, I know, however will you live, but that's okay. Just pretend you're listening to the radio, because in fact today we are going to talk about a former radio DJ turned music executive, Christopher Case. And let's just say we're going to talk about the case of Christopher Case. So we're going to take it all the way back to the 99 and the 2000. It's 1999. Christopher Case is a 35-year-old successful music executive in Seattle. He was in great shape, lots of friends, great family, but no girlfriend. And honestly, he wasn't even looking for one. I know how he feel, okay? He just wanted to stay home, listen to his ancient Egyptian music, and he didn't want anyone getting in the way of that. He had his routine and he wanted to stick to it. So he just focused on his music at work and music for leisure at home. Now, on April 11th of 1999, he had a work trip. Nothing out of the ordinary. Working in the music industry, of course, his job is going to require a lot of travel. So this trip was to San Francisco. He wasn't alone though. He was with a few of his co-workers that he considered to be friends, which I don't agree with. Co-workers are not your friends. But anywho, one of his friends decided to bring one of their friends that lived in San Francisco and decided to join them for dinner that night. So they're at dinner. Everyone's getting to meet this new friend. She's an older woman. Very beautiful, very intense stare, just a mysterious type of vibe. Have you ever seen someone that's very beautiful but very mysterious, like you want to know their story but you're scared to talk to them at the same time? It seems like you're just going to get sucked into their eyes. That was this woman, very mysterious. So they are all talking, enjoying dinner, having great conversation. And during this conversation, Chris finds out that he and this woman have a lot in common. One of their interests being a love for ancient Egyptian music. Now, to me, that would be strange because this is such a niche and specific type of interest. Like, what are the odds of randomly meeting someone who likes that too? But Chris was enjoying the conversation with her. You know, when you have a weird interest or you like a show that may not be as popular, but then you run into someone else that likes it too, then you're all excited. Y'all have good conversation. You get to ask their opinions, dissect it, anything you may have mixed. It's just a good old conversation when you find someone like, oh my gosh, you like that too? So do I. And that was happening. So the woman started to feel Chris. They're having a good conversation. So it went to, oh my gosh, we have so much in common, to the woman being like, this Chris guy kind of cute. He has a lot of charisma. He likes what I like. So as time went on, dinner starting to wrap up, she tells Chris, hey, why don't we just go back to my place? Let's just take this conversation back to my place. Chris was like, no, I'm good. Like I said before, Chris was not looking for anyone, but she kept asking, are you sure? I live close around here. I know you're not from here, so I can show you around. My place is not too far. Chris says, no, I'm good. But she continues to ask, and it goes from being all flirty, like, oh, come on, Chris, to Chris, let's go back to my place. Starts to get real aggressive. Chris begins to feel uncomfortable as she keeps trying to get him to say yes. He keeps saying no, and she gets pissed off. And she gets so pissed off that she says, well, actually, I'm a witch, and I'm going to put a curse on you, and you'll be dead in a week. So Christopher is like, okay, girl, sure. He goes back home to Seattle, tells one of his friends about the situation. They both laugh it off, because even with me, if I were to see that happen, as witchy and spiritual as I am, I would be like, what in the 2B movie is going on? What you saying? I'm a witch and I'm going to put a curse on you. I'm like, okay, what is this, the Wizard of Oz? Days go on. Chris is back to his music until April 13th, 1999, and it was not Friday the 13th. I wanted to make sure, because weird things do happen on Friday the 13th, but this situation took place on a random Tuesday where Chris is laying down in bed preparing to go to sleep. Then he starts to hear whispers coming from his kitchen. So of course, if we were to all be in a situation, what would we do? We would get quiet, try to listen, be very still. He's thinking that I leave the TV on, that I leave my music playing. But as he's trying to figure it out, the whisper stops. So he gets back comfortable in his bed, but then he begins to hear the whispering again. But this time it sounded a little further from his bedroom. So he walks over to the door, he peeks his head out, and of course the whispering stops, but then he sees someone run across the room from his peripheral vision. But it wasn't a person, but a shadow figure. He looks around and he starts to hear the whispering again. He's running around his apartment, turning on all the lights. He's not even worried about the whispering anymore because he just saw someone run across his home. So he's thinking that he's about to get robbed. Someone's in there. He's searching all over trying to find this person, but he finds no one. But now the whispering is coming from his room. He goes back to his room for only the whispering to stop again. And this chase going back and forth, looking for the whispers, looking for the shadow person, lasts all night until the next morning. The next morning, he calls his friend Sammy, and she is confused, like, what in the world is going on? Imagine your friend calling like, hey, I heard whispers, I saw a shadow person. We will all be like, okay, so wait, slow down, tell me what's going on. Now, Chris didn't want to call the police because they may have taken him somewhere else if he called saying, hey, there's a shadow person in my house, there's whispering, bouncing from room to room. They may have thought a little different situation was going on. Next night, the same thing happened again. The whispers, the running shadow. He was able to make out a silhouette of the person, but would leave if he got too close. The next day, he called his other friends, telling them what was going on. That night, April 15th, he was trying to force himself to go to sleep because now he hasn't slept in 2 days. He was able to go to sleep, but he woke up in the middle of the night, not awakened from the whispers, but when he tried to move his body, he couldn't. He was fully awake in a completely dark room, but could not move. He begins to hear the whispers bouncing from his front door to his window, to his closet, then right underneath his bed. Then he sees the same shadow figure from before slowly appearing right next to his bed, looking right down at him. The figure put his hand around his neck and began to strangle him, picks him up from the grip of his neck and throws him on the ground and just leaves. The next morning when Chris wakes up, his bed is covered with blood. He looks at his hands, and the top of every single finger has been carefully cut open. He had bruises all around his neck was sore. So what does he do? Call Sammy, but she felt helpless. She's on the other side of the country. He keeps having these events. He doesn't want to call the cops. He's stuttering, hyperventilating. She couldn't do anything. But Chris decided to face the situation head on. Maybe that woman did curse me. Maybe this is real. He made his way to his local religious bookstore. He asked the store owners, like, hey, I know this is going to sound weird, but do you happen to have any books on demon possession or how to protect yourself? They pointed him towards the right aisle, and he just started grabbing books. Anything that just looked like it was for protection about a demon, he just started grabbing anything, grabbed a whole bunch of crucifixes, and he went home, started reading, and got to work. He started putting the crucifixes in every single room, all over the place, lined up. He started lining his house with salt and taking all the precautions that the book said. So you would think that he would have better sleep that night. But it seems like it got worse. Instead of chasing the whispers and the shadow people all around, something happened that literally scared him out of his apartment where he checked into a hotel. Now, there's nothing I could find that share what exactly happened that night because he didn't call Sammy the next day on April 17th. Sammy actually decided to call Chris to make sure he was okay because she haven't heard from him. Of course, she called his house phone and he wasn't at home because we know he checked into a hotel. Sammy is worried. She's like, look, if Chris is too scared to call the cops, I will. She called the cops and they really didn't help much at all. They went over to his apartment, tried to get in. They're like, hey, it's locked. We couldn't get in. But let us know if you hear anything. So again, Sammy feels helpless even when she tried to help. She goes to work. She comes back home to see that she has a missed call and a voicemail from Chris on her house phone. Remember, this is 1999, so house phones were still the main point of contact. So Sammy is expecting Chris to sound scared like all the other times that he's called. But this time, there was a different tone of voice. He sounded like he's been beaten, like he's just given up. He says, look, I'm under attack. There's nothing I can do, and they're going to kill me tonight. Then the voicemail ends. Sammy knew she couldn't call the cops because she just called them before. They just blew her off. But the next day, Sammy found out Chris didn't show up to work. And like I said before, he's very passionate about his music. So him not showing up to work is very suspicious. So Sammy decides to call the cops one more time. They go to his place, but this time the door is unlocked. They go in and they find a lot of odd things. One, being the crucifixes all over his house. Two, candles burned down, wax spread all over. Handwritten notes warding off demons. The books he purchased open to random pages all over the place on how to protect yourself, demon possession, and all that stuff. They continued looking through the house, calling his name, but no answers. Then they made their way to his bathroom, where they see Chris in his tub, surrounded by candles, fully clothed on his knees, slouched against the wall, with his hands tucked against his chest, There was no external injuries as they could see, but Chris was dead. The cause of death was natural causes, so they said, which everyone found to be BS, but the results came back that he had a heart attack. Just like the woman said earlier, you will die within a week. And that's exactly what happened. And this is where the story ends. There are still a lot of questions that readers have, viewers have, and even the family and friends still have. Some people believe that he scared himself to death, that maybe he tried to do a spell where he tried to call on the spirit and end up killing himself, because this does sound very familiar to my previous video with the Kate story with being found in a tub. Maybe there's a certain ritual that requires you to be in a tub, and the same thing happened to him. Did he see something and had a heart attack where he was scared to death? What do you guys think happened? Now, y'all know I don't believe you can use magic to kill someone, but a lot of you guys disagree. So let's talk in the comments. Do you guys know more on this case than I do? Did I miss something? But y'all tell me, what do you think happened in the case of Christopher Case? But thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. And like I always say, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Until next time, you guys.
BlaqueWitchYaya.